114 yards, but it's the Jets. 114 and a half. It's like, it's Derrick Henry. Am I going to do it? I am going to do it. Give me the more. Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live, folks. I'm Connor Rowntree. Today we're joined by Nick Whalen to talk a little NFL action for the coming Sunday. Nick, your Jags played last night. They looked good out of the gate, but then stumbled. If I had to ask you this, what's your number one takeaway from that game? What would you tell me?
This is one of my lowest points as a fan. Honestly, 19 consecutive losses. That is extremely difficult to do. I am a little bit concerned that they're going to make a run at the modern era record, which I believe is 26. They have like 2.5 winnable games before that. They play Miami and London. They play the Colts. And then the 26th record tying loss would be against Atlanta. So they have to win one of those games because the record setting game would come against the Rams the following week. That's going to be an automatic loss. This felt like a game that it is a good football team. This felt like a game that they could have, I honestly, put away by halftime if they don't run a just ridiculous shotgun option from like the 9-inch line. That was a horrific play call, a horrific execution by Lawrence. I was encouraged by what I saw from him overall, but this team is extremely poorly coached. They're extremely talent deficient on the defensive end, especially. I think outside of Josh Allen, you don't have another single player on that defense who is even league average. I think everyone else is below league average. The secondary, Tyson Campbell was a disaster last night. You let CJ Uzoma, look like the second coming of Antonio Gates. It's just a team that instills no confidence at any point. As soon as the Bengals came out and scored 2 touchdowns in like 14 seconds in the second half, you kind of knew exactly where this game was going. So disappointing, obviously. I'm glad we were able to salvage at least a few of the victories in the MKF Thursday night contest. That was a nice kind of secondary victory, I guess, for me. But man, heading into a weekend where Wisconsin's probably going to get blown out again. I think I'm probably at my lowest point as a fan since the Badgers lost the national championship game 6 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
You need a hug?
I don't know, man. I watched the game. I watched the game with some friends last night. We were out for one of my buddy's birthdays, and we got home, and I just sat in the car for like 15 minutes by myself. And my girlfriend like texted me from the house, like, "Are you still out there? Like, what are you doing?" Like, I didn't even realize it had been that long. Just kind of reflecting. This team, you don't know what it's like to root for a team that has lost 19 consecutive games, man. There's no end in sight.
Dude, I'm a Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
I don't know anything about hockey. Are they bad?
They haven't won since 1967. So, dude, they're just like the worst thing ever assembled. It's just, let's move on. Talking football today, folks, before I end up depressed as Nick Whalen. We got Sam Darnold and Dak Prescott going toe-to-toe, Are the Panthers for real? I guess that's the question going in. They don't have CMC, obviously season-ending injury, but Chubba, I love that name. Chubba Hubbard coming in to make some plays. How do you see this one playing out here, Nick?
For the record, I think it's Chuba, right? I know there's 2 B's, but I've heard people pronounce it Chuba. Yeah, Chuba Hubbard. Chubba Hubbard sounds way cooler, in my opinion.
It rhymes like Chub Hub.
Yeah, right. I think, if it was up to us, I would prefer Chubba, but I believe it is Chuba. I like Dallas in this game. I think that the Cowboys have been kind of a thorn in my side the last couple of years when it comes to betting on games and even fantasy football. But I think this offense has looked very real this season, and honestly, it looked very real for a lot of last season until Dak got hurt, and then it kind of became a week-to-week crapshoot. But they can move the ball through the air. I think Zeke looks a lot better. Obviously, you have Tony Pollard running well. This would be a lot more interesting of a matchup, I think, if Christian McCaffrey was healthy. Obviously, we saw him go down last week in that Thursday night game. He will not play. And Carolina, I think, is still capable of hanging around in this game. I think they're really well coached, and they're a team that is certainly on the rise. But, if you watched that game last week against the Texans, like as soon as McCaffrey went out, they looked like they had no idea what they were doing on offense. And they were able to kind of get it together and win that game. But I think against a vastly superior opponent in Dallas, Carolina's going to have its work cut out for it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on the prediction, and you analyzed it nicely there. It's just the Dallas Cowboys, they know how to score points when Dak Prescott's under center. They got the two-headed backs with Pollard and Zeke. And then the receiving core is just so deep. I mean, Amari Cooper, Gallup's been banged up, but the fact is he's on that team. And then obviously CD Lamb. Like, he's got so many weapons, and he loves to sling the rock. That's why I'm going to lean towards the more on this one, because I do think that the Panthers, they make it close out of the gate. I think Chuba could make things interesting, and I think Sam Darnold. Well, he's been really good this season. He's got weapons around him too. Robbie Anderson. I was watching the Panthers press conference earlier this week. Head coach was saying we got to get Robbie Anderson more involved. So let's see if what they do, it's wide receiver screens, some underneath routes, but he's a fast guy. If it's just some deep shots, right? And that could just try to extend that Dallas defense that's been predominantly better against the run this season. So I'm going to take more and more on both of these. The suckers bet on Monkey Knife Fight, going for the exciting game. But in all seriousness, though, I'm actually a big fan of this line because I see this being a Sam Darnold that needs to come out of his comfort shell of those 15-yard passes, of those swing passes to Christian McCaffrey, and those terrible passes we saw with the New York Jets, right? I think he's going to have to extend the field a bit against this Dallas team to keep the game close, to keep pace. So I like the more and more.
Yeah, I think I like the more on Dak a little bit more than I do for Darnold. But this is a game that they could certainly be trailing in for a great deal of it. I think the amount of yardage that Darnold's potentially losing by not having McCaffrey is what concerns me. I mean, you can usually chalk up McCaffrey for at least 50 to 75 yards, just out of the backfield. And it's not like you can't, replicate that to some degree with Chuba and with Royce Freeman, but it's not the same. So there's a little bit of a concern there that, not having that threat out of the backfield, how does that affect, how open guys are downfield? Like you said, if they can get Robbie Anderson involved, that could certainly change things, because every time he catches the ball, I mean, it seems like it's a 50+ yard reception. He's kind of the new Deshaun Jackson in that way. But again, like you said, he's not been involved yet, and they've been able to go 3-0 without him. At some point, they're going to get Robbie Anderson going. Maybe this is the week, but Dallas is bottom 10 in yards allowed per play, or yards per attempt, I should say, both on the ground and through the air. So, this defense has looked better. They've the way that Trayvon Diggs specifically is playing defensively, like the aggressiveness that they've shown is great, but they're still allowing a lot of yards. So in a game that I think Carolina, maybe has to play catch up, or at least has to try to go, touchdown for touchdown with Dak in this offense, I think I'll ride with you on Darnold. He can go more here.
Yeah, I think you just said it right. He's going to have to try to keep with them. And one thing I wanted to bounce off you, Nick, was the fact you mentioned that Carolina, they're 3-0. But where does strength of schedule come to play there? I mean, the Jets, the Saints, and the Texans. Now, the Saints have been hot and cold, Katy Perry style. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. But the Jets and Texans are not elite teams. So where does that leave you with where do you think the Panthers are as a franchise right now?
I think they're a team that's going to compete for a playoff berth, certainly, especially if Christian McCaffrey doesn't miss too much time. But I mean, we can't say that the schedule hasn't played into this, right? I mean, the Jets are a free win. I think Houston has probably looked a little bit better than we expected, or at least more competitive. Like they're kind of closer to like the Detroit Lions, where they don't have a win, but they've been really close and have been a lot friskier than people expected. So that's not necessarily a pushover, but also a game that you're win 9 out of 10 times. And then the Saints win week to week. Like some weeks that looks like a great win. Other weeks it looks like another kind of downtrodden team that you're rolling over. So the strength of schedule has not been great, but at the same time, I mean, the Panthers are the number one passing and rushing defense. And again, you're not going up against great opponents to get to those numbers, but that's tough to do regardless of who you're playing. So I think Carolina's for real. If the question is what is their ceiling, like I don't think they're even a dark horse Super Bowl contender necessarily, but I think if you add another weapon or two, to that offense in the next year, I think 2023, 2024, this is a team that is certainly on the rise.
Yeah, and I think noting how good the Panthers defense it has been this season is something it's important to talk about. I mean, they've allowed 14 or less points in all 3 games this year. No matter who you're playing, that's just good defense right there. That's good defensive football. You can't take that away from them. And I'm excited to see them go up against Dak, but we talked about it before we came on air, right? Too many weapons, and I think he'll end up just absolutely slaying them. So we like the more on Dak Prescott in this one right off the bat here, Jason, if you want to punch that one in. We got Pat Mahomes. He's playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and KC, it's weird to say they're in shambles. They lost at home to LA. Denver's undefeated. The Raiders are undefeated. KC's in last place in the AFC West. What's going on? And because of that, I think they're going to skin the Eagles this week. I think Pat Mahomes has got to make a statement. I think I got to take the more on that. Travis Kelce's going to get involved. I like the 8 though. Yeah, I still like more on that. That guy gets double-digit targets every single week. So starting it off with the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm doing the sucker bets and going for the mores today. But hey, that's how I see it.
I think we need to make this like a promoted segment, like sucker bets of the week, like ones that you just feel terrible about, but you're doing anyway. I mean,
so that's what it is.
Sorry that we root for fun, guys. We only root for fun here.
I think you're right on Mahomes. I mean, at some point it's going to come around, right? Like, I don't know how many games the Chiefs would have to lose for me to like actually back off of them as the team that I think is going to make the Super Bowl in the AFC. And I feel like we kind of hinted at this coming into the season, where they've become this team that is just it's Super Bowl or bust every single year. And I think that maybe makes it hard to get up for each individual game. I thought they would be a little better, honestly, especially after coming off of a Super Bowl loss last year and a season where it felt like they did kind of coast. I thought they would make more of an effort to avoid games like that. But I also don't think they played as badly as the record would imply. I mean, they've had some just crazy bad turnover luck, fumbles by CEH each of the last 2 weeks that were super costly. I mean, Mahomes has multiple interceptions that have been tipped, guys just kind of in the wrong area, balls bouncing off of helmets and shoulder pads. Like, I mean, they're still playing their normal style. They're still getting big plays. I mean, against the Chargers specifically, they had, I think, 3 first half turnovers that killed what would have easily been scoring drives. So I'm really not concerned. It's not like they're getting out there and going 3 and out and the offense looks broken. Like, they're still moving the ball. They're just not finishing off these drives. So eventually I think they get that straightened out. And I think with the Eagles coming to town, that's a good time to do it.
Yeah, I love your read on that. And then another thing that I think needs to be noted too is that I think Philadelphia's run game is just going to gash KC. The Eagles have averaged about 130 yards on the ground this season. KC's giving up over 160. So I think if the Eagles blow up a few big run plays, Pat Mahomes is going to have to be aggressive to keep the Chiefs in the game because rush defense hasn't been their thing. Speaking of a guy that causes rush defenses a fit, it's Derrick Henry there. 114 yards, but it's the Jets of 114 and a half. It's like, it's Derrick Henry. Am I going to do it? I am going to do it. Give me the more.
So what are your concerns here? What are the concerns that this is a blowout and
they maybe not? I guess. That would be the only concern, really. Like, maybe the Jets are like, well, it's Derrick Henry. Let's stop him.
Yeah.
But I don't really see that happening. It's a high number. That's the concern. That's what it is.
It's a high number, but it is Derrick Henry and it is the Jets. So I do think, this is, if you're Tennessee, you're probably going to try to get up early in this game and run it out. The question is, is this maybe an opportunity if you're up 21-3 going into the second half? Like, is this an opportunity to kind of rest Derrick Henry on the fly, and not have him, not have the storyline coming out of this game? Well, Derrick Henry has carried the ball 29 times going into next week. I think this is just a game that you try to get in, win it as easily, I guess, as you can. If you're Tennessee, you're not trying to set the rushing record, but at the same time, like, does anybody trust this Jets defense to slow down Derrick Henry? I mean, the combination of speed, power, tackle breaking, like there's nobody else like him in the league right now. I think I would go over as well. I mean, Tennessee, Julio Jones is banged up. AJ Brown is banged up. Both of those guys might not play. If they have to rely on the run game to build that lead in the first half, obviously there's one man for the job, and that's Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it really is a sucker's paradise today on Monkey Knife Fight. But I mean, he's got 353 yards on the year.
That is such a good line.
I'm glad you enjoyed that one. But seriously though, the Jets are so bad. They're 0-3. And another thing to note too is I don't like, even if they get up, they're really not the team. Mike Vrabel isn't the kind of guy that's like, Derek, take a seat, relax. Like Henry has. True. I was looking at a stat. I think it was SportsCenter stats or Sportsnet stats, and Derek Henry has more receptions this season than Alvin Kamara going into this week. Like really? That guy. Yeah, actually, pull it up right now. Yeah, that is a stat. Derek Henry has more receptions than Alvin Kamara so far this season through the first 3 weeks. So he's engaged in the game all the time. I like the more. I just think you got to roll with it. And Stephon Diggs, I mean, it's Houston. They're visiting Buffalo. Stephon Diggs he is the explosive igniter of that offense. He's the ignition key to that Bills offense when Josh Allen wants to take a shot, when Josh Allen gets into a rhythm. And you said it earlier, Houston's kind of been cheeky. They've been hanging around games. At the start of the season, Tyrod Taylor looked really, really good. I got to take the more on Stephon Diggs. I like the number at 88.5 for him, for that caliber of a receiver. My worry would be is that they get up on Houston and not pass the ball as much, but Josh Allen loves to air the ball out. So I'm going to go with more on that one.
Yeah, I think we're going to go 5 for 5 here on the wars. Stephon Diggs has not topped 70 yards yet in any of his 3 games. That's a little concerning, I guess, if you're a Diggs fantasy owner. I mean, the receptions have been there. He had 9 catches, didn't even get in the end zone in week 1. I mean, he has 2 double-digit target games already. So it's not really, it's not like a Robbie Anderson situation where you're like, this guy just hasn't been involved. Like, he's been involved. He just, he hasn't broken off the big plays. He hasn't, had a 2 or 3 touchdown game yet. But I think those games are coming, right? And to me, this is almost like playing the averages, where it's like, is he really going to have another game under 70 yards? I'd say probably not. Like, he's due for a big time breakout. I think 88.5, given the circumstances, is kind of a perfect line. And if it was a little bit higher, maybe I wouldn't feel as good about it. But I think he's due for a big time breakout, and I think this Houston defense is the right one for him to attack.
Yeah, I mean, having the fewer than 70 yards this season, you called it. It's just a matter of time. It's really a matter of time. He shakes 1 tackle on a screen pass, a wide receiver screen. He catches 1 more deep ball, and that's it. And he gets that number, and I think he will get that number because of the fact that Josh Allen loves to throw the ball, as we just said. All right, well, let's talk a little touchdown dance now. I mean, we kind of just rolled through the King Henry part of the segment, but I think King Henry reigns supreme over the Jets. So let's punch Derrick Henry in to that opening slate touchdown dance if we can, Jason, to get everything started, because, well, he's the king.
Yeah, I mean, I feel better about that than I do the yardage. So I'm certainly not going to dissuade you from Derrick Henry. I mean, I'll always go back to the Nick Chubb. Well, he didn't get in last week. Kareem Hunt, was the one who had ended up breaking off like a 30-yard touchdown. But he was close a few times, always going to be around the goal line, had multiple touchdowns through his first couple of games. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott, like we said, running a lot better. Yeah, the split with Pollard is a little concerning, but I think he's running with a lot more confidence. He's catching the ball out of the backfield with more confidence. He doesn't look like he's kind of running through mud like he had been these last couple of years. I feel like every year he says he's in the best shape of his life, but he actually looks like it, I think, this time around. So I do trust him. I mean, if you want to look at receivers, I think Stephon Diggs, Jefferson, Thielen in Minnesota, like Thielen and Jefferson seem to get in every single week, regardless of the circumstance. I would trust either of those guys. But, if we're betting on a big week for Stephon Diggs against an overmatched Houston defense, if I think he can approach 100 yards, I think chances are he finds the end zone as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a dynamic player because of how well he runs his routes, his speed, and then his catching ability. He really is a quarterback's dream. I like all those picks. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, you can always mix him in. He's just such a versatile back. But one name in that early slate to stay away from, I would say, a name that I just saw that popped up there. Jason, if you hit the add the player button, I wouldn't touch Dalvin Cook this week. Madison just went off. Madison went off last week. Cook's still banged up. I don't see it like you don't want Cook hurt because he is that dynamic of back, and Madison can do he's proven he can do a well enough job. The man, when Cook isn't in the lineup, it has 100-yard games, He's getting in the end zone. So I just think because Cook is banged up, I don't trust him being as integrated into the Minnesota scheming this week. And that's why I would just be like, folks, there's so many other good options. Let's stay weary of Dalvin Cook for now. What do you think of that take? Is that a little too hot for you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, Cook did practice on Friday, so it does look like he is going to play in this game. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly some risk. I don't think he's going to be at 100%. And like you said, Alexander Mattison looked plenty fine as his replacement last week. So it's not like you have to go back to shoveling, 80% of the carries to Dalvin Cook. And on top of that, I mean, the Browns have only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns through these first 3 weeks. So, I mean, it's not exactly a defense that's opening the floodgates there. So I think I do like that call.
Yeah, well, let's get into a couple undefeated teams now. We got the Arizona Cardinals visiting the Los Angeles Rams, a little NFC West action. Undefeated teams, as I said, that's going to be an awesome game. I'm so excited. You got that explosive Cardinals offense that always looks so good to start a game and then looks incredibly sloppy, like a high school team for a bit. Like, oh, we got comfortable, but we can score at any time. Makes the game close and end up winning the game versus a Rams team that has really built themselves as a powerhouse in the NFC. And I think they've proven to me in their first 3 games this season that they are the team to beat in the NFC. Matt Stafford looks great, completing over 70% of his passes this year. And their defense, man, you can't credit their defense enough for how solid they are.
Yeah, I think they're the team to beat, not only in the NFC, but in the NFL. I think that was a firm message received, the way that they dismantled Tampa Bay last week. I don't think there's a single team that is as well-rounded as the Rams are. A team like maybe Green Bay, you could say, like, yeah, maybe their offense is slightly more dangerous, but then you look at the Green Bay defense versus the Rams defense, and, the difference between the defenses, I think, is larger than the difference between the offenses, if that makes sense. I mean, they're such a complete team. I mean, and this is a team that lost its starting running back to a torn Achilles in training camp. I mean, they could be even better. And they've, Darrell Henderson's been banged up these last couple of weeks as well. It just hasn't mattered. I mean, they have a super deep receiving core. I mean, you have Deshaun Jackson going for 100+ yards. Like, Van Jefferson is like your 4th option. Like, that's such a luxury. Cooper Kupp obviously emerging, as somewhat of a superstar for this team. So I think they keep it rolling. I think Arizona, this could be a fun back and forth, high scoring game, but I don't trust Arizona week to week nearly as much as I do the Rams. I mean, the Rams are going to get tripped up at some point. They're not going to go 17-0, but I mean, the way they've looked so far, I mean, this could be a 14-3, 15-2 type of season for the Rams.
Yeah, I think when those losses come too, it'll be the Rams beating themselves, not really a team beating them, because they're that well built. And you said it, like, Cooper Kupp is putting up banner-like numbers right now. He's already got 5 receiving touchdowns on the year. And the Rams defense, I mean, they've allowed 30 or fewer points in 16 straight games. Like, wow. And Arizona's scored over 30 points every game this season. So it has all the makings to be a classic matchup. I think Kyler Murray's going to go for less than his passing yard. I think passing line on Monkey Knife Fight. I think that the Rams defense is going to get in his face. I think he's going to have to be scrambling. He's going to have to lean on his legs, that comfortability factor, and that safety net that they do provide for him. We saw how good that rush attack is. And we've actually seen quarterbacks. We saw Justin Fields take a snap from about the 8-yard line and rumble in to score in week 1 against the Rams. So I do think the rush is the play with Kyler Murray this week. So I'm going to take less on his pass line, but I think he's going to have a big fantasy week. So if you're a fantasy owner, don't be scared on that projection there. Nick, how do you see Kyler Murray?
Really, really difficult. I mean, you look at his first 3 games, 289, 400, 316. So, he's cleared that hurdle in all 3. And that's Tennessee, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. Not the greatest defenses in the league, but, Minnesota is at least respectable. The Rams are a different ballgame. That's for sure. So he certainly could be due for a big time regression. I will go less on this, but only because the number I think is a little too high. I think he gets, over 250. 285.5 is just a little bit too much against a defense that, I mean, do you trust any defense in the league more than the Rams to be prepared for a guy like Kyler Murray? I think they're the number 1 team I would expect to be, well schemed to be prepared to defend both the run and the pass.
Yeah, they'll have somebody spying him, and the athleticness of just, man, like Aaron Donald in the middle there. You could even have him spying with how fast that guy is. So I'm really excited to see that matchup, and I think it's going to be a really good a good bookmark and a good note to make how Kyler Murray plays in that game, because we've seen him play so well this season. Let's see him play a really a 1A NFL defense this season, and then move on and see how he continues after that, because he's having an unbelievable season, MVP caliber season to start. And we're really going to see him get tested here. On the other side of the football, it's Matthew Stafford, and we were complimenting him. I mean, he's got averaging, I think, 314 pass yards per game, completion percentage up over 70. I think it's going to be an explosive game, and the Cardinals can make plays. So you're going to need Matthew Stafford throwing the ball. So I like the more on Stafford, although I'm going with the less on Murray. 305.5 is a big number, but Matthew Stafford is playing some big boy football right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Arizona pass defense, top 5 in the league in terms of, yards per attempt allowed. They've allowed only like 606 passing yards through 3 games. So, that would imply that maybe you should consider the under here, although I do believe that includes sack yardage, when you're talking net yards. So, that number is actually a little bit higher. At the same time, I mean, we just spent like 5 minutes praising Stafford and this offense and this receiving core. I like Arizona's defense. You have some playmakers on that side, but it's just too overwhelming. Like I said, if your third and fourth options are guys who are threats to, either make any catch downfield like Van Jefferson, or, go for 100 yards and still be one of the fastest players in the league, and Deshaun Jackson, like that is such a luxury to take the pressure off of guys like Kupp and Robert Woods. I mean, if you focus your entire defense on stopping Cooper Kupp, they still have like 3 or 4 options that you feel great about on that offense. So no, I don't think they slow down. I think they push on this week, and I think we see another big game from Stafford.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I loved how you broke that down and used that analogy to push on, because they are really pushing the pace, and they're the pace setters right now in the NFL, as you said. Really the team to beat. And I think it's going to be, that's one of those games where let's pop some popcorn, give me a soda, and let's just sit back and watch that game like through and through, because I'm genuinely excited for a good football game because of the explosive playmaking on both sides of the ball, because of the defensive talent and caliber on both sides of the ball. And it's also just a fun matchup, and you gotta love it.
Kyler Murray. I was gonna say, I think it has the best actual, more or less, like 2x2 with the Murray rushing and Cooper Kupp receiving.
Yeah. Give me, honestly, right now, give me that. Give me more and more. Give me the Sucker's Paradise 2.0. Give me the more and more. I think, as I said, Kyler Murray's gonna have to use his legs, whether it's the design QB run, QB draw, whether it's him scrambling and running for his life and turning a negative play into a positive play. 40 yards is completely doable in my book. And we said it, Cooper Kupp, I think he was named NFC Offensive Player of the Month yesterday. So yeah, he's doing all right.
He's been fantastic. I'm going to go less on Kyler though. I think he for a guy who's as great of a runner as he is, like he's openly said, like, I don't really want to run that much. He doesn't like taking hits. He does a great job of avoiding them. He very rarely takes a big hit. He's a great slider, great at getting out of bounds. He's run for 20, 31, and 19 yards respectively in their first 3 games. I like this Rams defense a lot. It hasn't been quite as, impenetrable, I guess, as we maybe thought it would so far, but I don't think this is the defense where he all of a sudden has a season high in rushing. You're asking him to get to 40 yards, and that's really not a number that he's approached so far this season. After watching that Jags defense last night, and if Kyler Murray can only run for 19 yards against the Jags defense, I don't necessarily love his chances to more than double that on Sunday. So I'll go less on Murray, and I'm going to go more on Cooper Kupp.
Well, my counter to that Murray point, he doesn't need to run the ball against Jacksonville. He's got, you mentioned it, how bad their secondary is, and he's got the weapons around him to pass it. I think what it comes down to is the pressure. I think that D-line and that edge rushing from Leonard Floyd, I think Aaron Donald up the middle, I think they're going to get pressure. I think that's when Murray's going to have to turn those negatives into positives, pardon me. And that's why I really think his legs are going to be a factor in this one, whether it's breaking them and getting down. And also, not to mention, the pass coverage from the Rams is so far superior to anything else they've seen this season. And you just don't want to force turnovers, right? You don't want to force a ball into a tight window, especially against guys like Jalen Ramsey, who can literally pick it off with one hand and return it in a blink of an eye. That's why I like the more. So I'm sticking with it, Nick, and I'm going toe to toe with you on that one. Love a good banter here on Monkey Knife Fight Live. All right, I think Jason's got a fun little slate to pull up for us now. We got Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Teddy Bridgewater. A few quarterbacks coming at us. And how about Teddy Bridgewater this season? I think you really have to credit him to the calm steadiness to that start. Obviously, he had the big injury early in his career. We all thought his career was done. He went down to New Orleans. We're all like, oh, he's going to be the next Drew Brees. All right, everything works out. Gets out of New Orleans. They got Jameis Winston doing his thing now. Well, or whatever he does. Anyway, and Teddy Bridgewater looks really good in Denver, and he has really looked to take a leadership role to me. When I've seen them play this season, he looks like he's in full command of that offense, and I think it's great to see. What's your read on Teddy Bridgewater this season, Nick?
I think he's been exactly what they hoped he would be, right? I think he is the safer option when you're comparing him to Drew Lock. I think he is a perfect kind of bridge, no pun intended, quarterback who also has a little bit of upside. Like he's a step above like the Andy Daltons of the world, like somebody you just need to start for a year while you're chasing a free agent or waiting for a rookie to develop or whatever it might be. Like Teddy Bridgewater probably doesn't have like Super Bowl upside or conference championship game upside, but he also, the best case scenario is not like an 8-8 season as it is with an Andy Dalton. So I think he has shown that wherever he goes, like he's going to give you like slightly above average quarterback play. And I think Denver's a team that is certainly maybe more so than any other team in the league benefited from a soft schedule so far. They're not 3-0 if they don't play the Giants, the Jags, and the Jets. That's as soft as a start as it possibly gets. Those might be the three worst teams in the league right now. But at the same time, I mean, you still got to give him credit. They've had injuries in the receiving core. His first year there, he's not overly familiar. Didn't even have, he wasn't even locked into the starting job coming into this season. So I've been really impressed with Bridgewater. And I think going up against the Ravens, I mean, we still think of this Baltimore defense, I think, as the team that it's been, for the last 2 decades. But this has not been a great defense so far. I mean, they gave up 400 plus against Derek Carr in week 1. They obviously gave up a lot of yards to Mahomes in that Chiefs game. They can be beaten through the air.
Do you know what? I'm just such a huge fan how you used bridge with Bridgewater, and you mentioned the word lock. And then you said lock too, while talking about Drew Lock and him not being a lock as a starter, referring to Bridgewater. You're the pun king, man. You're on fire today. I'm loving the swag you're bringing to the show. But if we look at Bridgewater's projections, right, on Monkey Knife Fight, 260.5. He went 264 in week 1 against the Giants team, against the Jags. He skinned them 328. And then last week, he didn't really need to do much in a 26-0 win where he threw for 235. Now he has to deal with Baltimore. That's a big step up in competition. That's like going from playing like a Tyke team to being like, yo, let's go just play a college football team. Like that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking big step ups. And I see you rolling your eyes, but you know what I mean. I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be able to contain Bridgewater. And I think Bridgewater is going to have to be quick and effective with his throws. Like we've seen this season, get the ball out quick, get it out to Cordell Sutton, get it out to those guys on the outside to try to make plays. But I don't see him getting 260 against a really good Ravens defense.
I'm going to go the other way. I think this Ravens defense, like I said, I think they can be beat through the air. I know they had some injuries. They had some COVID absences, I believe, early on. Some of those guys are back. That should certainly help. But, you lose Marcus Peters. This defense doesn't have quite as many playmakers as it has in the past. The one thing that does worry me, there's a ton of injuries to this Broncos team already, like all over. They have what? I'm looking on the great site, Rotowire.com. They have like 5 guys who are already done for the year with the torn ACL. You lose Jerry Jeudy, you lose KJ Hamler. Those are 2 of your top 3 playmakers in that receiving core. I mean, luckily you still have Tim Patrick, who does kind of come out of nowhere to be a really reliable option. But this offense maybe isn't quite as dynamic as it looked like it was going to be coming into the season. But again, it is a step up in competition. That is absolutely a truth. Like I said, their schedule's been super soft, but in a game where I think they're going to have to pass the ball to stay in it, I like Bridgewater to go over.
All right, well, there you go, folks. Teddy Bridgewater, a little Teddy Bridgewater breakdown.